You're listening to the Jared Watson Show.
What the fuck is that?
I don't know.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Jared Watson Show. Coming to you live from my office. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Jared Watson Show. What are you doing? You're being obnoxious.
Oh, it's doing it again from Facebook.
Shut it off.
I did.
Live on Facebook, all you got to do is head over to our page. Search the Jared Watson Show.
And if you can hear him, you've already done that.
This is for anybody like next time.
Oh.
Ooh, I can do that. I'll do that next time. Coming up tonight, we're going to talk about what will likely be a depressing subject.
Nah, man.
Suicide.
Why's it got to be depressing?
Well, it doesn't have to be. It just feels like it's got a good chance of being depressing.
Yeah, so it sounds like it will be, but it probably won't be.
Jake's also got a theory about something.
And if you're tuning in because you were hoping to hear us talk about the philosophies and messages and weirdness of Interstellar and Arrival.
Yeah, we were going to do that.
Which is what we were telling y'all we would do this week when we were here last time. Mm-hmm. We decided to save that. And that's because we both got a little too busy to rewatch both those movies, which we wanted to do in order to talk about them intelligently and interestingly. And now y'all have another week to watch them again yourselves. And we won't be spoiling anything tonight.
We're already, and the complaints are already rolling in. Our first 20 messages from Devin Suits. Thanks, Devin.
Let me guess. Not enough Jake Richmond face?
He likes the angle. Can't see your beautiful face. Jake, move your mic. Better angle.
So I'm going to be doing like this. Like I have to talk and then...
Sounds like a complaining wife in bed or something, you know?
I don't know what that's like.
You never had that? Yeah, me neither, man.
She does all her complaining and elsewhere?
Oh, that's a good beer. Today I found something new. I decided I was going to have beer, not wine. I'm going to enjoy this. It's a Citradelic, I think is the name of it. It's an IPA and New Belgium IPA. Yeah, rather delicious. You went with your
Parliament
your
Citradelic. Yeah, I haven't been contributing to the beverages at all this season. It is all right, but I thought on my way here I would stop and see if I could contribute. And so I was lucky enough to find Lagunitas Undercover Investigation Shutdown Ale. Mm-hmm. And people, if you've never tried it, don't go buy it where I live because I don't want you stealing the last supply of it, but try it somewhere else. It's the best.
Well, I'm not normally drinking the beer, but I was in the mood, and it's definitely hitting the spot. What I also want to address is the last bonus episode. Some of you may have had a chance to watch or listen to. Some of you might not have had that chance yet because I threw it out there in the middle of the week because it was recorded during the week I was in Ohio. A crossover show with Spare Time Talks, which is hosted by my brother and his friend Craig. And I thought it was a rather entertaining show until later on in the episode where I become this monster that just wants to interrupt everything, and it was kind of obnoxious. So I apologize if I were you. I wouldn't. I don't mind if you shut it off when it gets to that point. I wouldn't be offended whatsoever.
This whole thing is fascinating because I did listen to it, and I shared it before listening to it. And for those of you who are just my Facebook friends and maybe tuning in for the first time to that episode, I apologize because, and Ian and Craig, this is in no way a reflection of you. But that was not Jared Watson's best work.
No.
But I'm conflicted because
I don't think anyone's
that-
seen my best work yet. When have I brought my A game to this show?
I'm conflicted because that was recorded while Jared was back home dealing with. He's basically there for the end of his grandma's life, and he had a lot of family there. And that, if you were listening a couple weeks ago, we talked about that and how he was there for her last moments. And that was kind of in the middle of all that. He and his brother, since they aren't together all the time, and they both have these talk shows, they decided to record something, this crossover thing. And so, like, it sounds really cool, and in some respects, it was really cool in the context of that. And so if you're forgiving of the content because you're talking about, two brothers who are dealing with some family sadness while trying to talk about things that aren't sad, what ended up happening is I think you guys turned what may have become an interesting conversation about video games into I think about 40 minutes of naming your favorite video games. A straight listicle, audio listicle of my favorite video games. And it was like...
It was almost just, it was therapeutic, I think, just for me to think about it, as opposed to, it wasn't for anyone.
That's
what
it was.
Obnoxious. It was so obnoxious.
And the funniest thing was, you know what it reminded me of? This is for you, Ryan.
Ryan just commented, by the way.
I'm gonna make a fantasy football reference just for Ryan. Yeah. So, if you play hardcore fantasy football, there's always that discussion, either on your league message board or on a different fantasy message board or at your office on Monday, where you're about to win or lose your matchup that week, and all you need is certain things to happen in Monday Night Football for you to win, or if this happens, then you'll lose. And you think the person you're talking to cares about what your team needs, and really they're just waiting to tell you what their team needs.
Yeah.
And no one ends up caring about anyone else's team. That was what that whole podcast was about. You guys only wanted to talk about your own favorite video games and your experiences, and what ended up happening was you kept interrupting each other over and over and over. Yeah. But my favorite was, and I don't think there was a completed thought for the last hour. And all I ended up listening to for the last hour was just like wondering, like I was keeping a tally. Yeah. How many times are they going to interrupt each other? And so that made it kind of entertaining.
Turn it into a drinking game.
It could have been. It could have been. And you did become a monster. You did.
Oh.
And poor Ian. God bless Ian. Yeah. And, I mean, Craig as well, because Craig even said afterward, like, I'm just kind of letting the Watsons have their space.
Yeah.
Ian tried to say, like, 4 things in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And he didn't say one thing because you kept cutting him off.
Yeah.
I really am curious about some of the things he wanted to say.
We'll have to do another one. We'll do another one.
We'll
do it. Or maybe we won't.
Maybe
we won't.
They were on the show last season. For those of you who don't know, Ian and Craig came here, and we did a straight up, like, the Jared Watson show with those two. And it was great. Like, it was legitimately fun and interesting.
We got one show out of it. The second half went a little bit off the rails, so we didn't end up posting the other parts. Quick reminder, everybody, if you want to advertise with us, if there's ever a point where you would want to advertise with us, this is where I'm inserting this portion of the show.
Mom?
Jared's
all you have
mom?
To do is selling anything?
Shoot us an email at jaredjohnpr@gmail.com, JARID, of course. And a quick reminder, the Banff 2017 bags are going to be available soon. All you have to do is hit up tacticalcac.com.
If you sell slimming sweaters, we have a spokesperson.
Spanx.
If you would like someone for your before pictures, we have someone.
Yeah.
And if you want someone to read like 5-minute long ad copy without breaking, I'm here for you.
Also, reminder, if you want to talk to us about whatever we do eventually talk about during the show, hit us up on our Facebook page. We're going to monitor that throughout the show and hopefully include some of your comments. What else? Did we hit everything on the intro? I think.
Yeah.
All right. I think we did.
In the news.
Do they hear this?
No, they don't hear this.
Okay, so Facebook audience. He has a sounder. It's pretty cool. It's just
You're
some
killing it
weirdo.
right now. I'm going to go into it. A West Boca man, Boca Raton, Florida, raising questions about the city's code after he was told to remove a Trump-Pence campaign sign, but his neighbors were permitted to continue flying a KKK flag. Yeah, so that's going on. Good job, Florida. 2 schools in Southington, Connecticut were placed in secure school mode. This is a DeVos story right here.
It's really loud.
Betsy
The
DeVos.
music's loud.
I don't care.
Okay.
Secure school mode after a black bear was spotted nearby on Tuesday morning, according to Southington Superintendent Tim, whoever this guy is. I can't pronounce his last name. There was a bear sighting near the Paolo Middle School. He added that the animal was moving in the direction of Spring Lake at the time, so maybe they do need to have guns in the schools to protect the students from bears. Not as dumb now, is it?
Where is this?
Connecticut.
In Connecticut?
They're never going to legalize that in Connecticut. Also, Jeff Sessions. Apparently talking to the Russians. We'll find out more. He's recused himself of investigating himself in the matter.
What?
The top legal dude in America, right?
Can you, I don't know anything about this.
No, it's a quick hit. Look it up yourself. Here, what we can do is
What?
we can go to CNN. You want to go to CNN? Take a look?
Are you just informing the audience?
Oh, yeah, it's just quick news
We're not
hits.
talking about it?
We can, because I knew that you were going to have a problem with that. You wouldn't let it just be a bit. You were going to try to turn it into like a discussion. I don't want to discuss anything. These are just quick hits.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about him?
So many questions.
Yeah. Well then,
Tracy?
go to CNN. It's all over the place.
Why?
Trump, the president is saying that Sessions did not say anything wrong. So apparently, in the supposed talks with the Russians, while he was a senator, prior to becoming the attorney general, during the campaign, though, he was having conversations with people in Russia.
About what?
That's what we don't know,
We don't know?
which is why he hasn't resigned yet, even though a lot of Democrats are calling for his resignation right now. Still crazy. You don't like that,
Okay.
do you?
Well, no.
What's your problem with it, Jake?
No, I think it's got potential. I do.
Okay.
It's got potential. I wasn't prepared to get the quick hits and not
I literally
say
put it
anything.
on the paper. It's on the paper, Jake. I put it on the paper.
No, they're there.
In the news, quick hits.
Does
boom,
it
boom,
say
boom, boom.
we will not be discussing these?
That's why I put quick hits.
Just
I thought it'd be more entertaining to tell you while we were doing this now.
yeah. So, question:
Yeah, answer.
why was somebody told to remove a campaign sign? That makes
So,
no sense.
Because after the elections, I believe that most cities have a statute where you are not allowed to leave campaign signs up any longer than 10 days after the
really?
election or whatever. Yeah, I guess there's a lot of cities, a lot of municipalities throughout the United States that have those rules.
Doesn't
And I
apply
remember
to
actually
bumper
discussing
stickers.
this stuff when I was during a comm law class, and it has to do with the discussion had to do with how far does your belief in First Amendment rights go? Do you believe that people should be allowed to leave these signs up? Do you believe that the city should be able to impede on your free speech and tell you have to take these signs down? Because the neighbor is allowed to continue the free speech because there is no statute against the KKK sign.
Right.
But there is a statute against political signs past the election. Make sense?
I guess.
Not really.
I mean,
At the end of the
not when
day,
you
it
put
doesn't make
next to
sense.
each other.
At the end of the day, it does not make
But
sense.
This is something that if you were a bored journalist, you could write that story after every election, right?
Yeah.
Just
I'm
fill
sure.
in a different campaign sign.
Well,
and
I think
then-
Florida makes it more interesting because you have people that would fly a KKK flag next to the people flying the Trump flag. So. Anyway, those are your quick hits.
I just learned something
Those are
from you.
some news stories, and
A couple things.
I'm glad I was able to share them with you. Even though Jake's pissed off that he didn't get to talk more about them.
I'm good.
Are you sure?
Yep. I was just confused.
So again, we were going to talk tonight about the movies Interstellar and Arrival, and have a conversation about both of those movies. And a couple of days ago, we decided, we don't have time to watch both movies, and to make that happen this Thursday.
Did we forget that? You kind of you're speeding through this.
No, I didn't think I forgot it. I just didn't want to talk about it in the beginning. I thought we would talk about it before we got into the topic.
No, I mean, no, you forgot this. Sorry, I'll turn it down.
Oh, you need that, so I should have waited for you to.
Don't turn my mic down.
I just turn it. That's where that's coming through at.
Well, okay, I'm turning my volume down.
Yeah.
For you.
Okay.
All right. So I'm sorry, I wasn't ready for your transition.
Well, okay.
There. Now we're ready to go.
Are you sure?
Okay. That's a good volume, right?
Yeah, that's real.
Go.
Good. So, we're not going to talk about Interstellar and Arrival tonight. We're going to talk about
transitioning again.
Suicide, man. Suicide, a touchy subject. I'm sure that many people listening or watching, or who will listen to or watch, have had some experience with this in their life at one time or another. It's crazy how I think my views have changed about the subject over the years. And obviously, the more that you kind of experience things, the more you age, the more you grow, the more you become empathetic, the more you change those opinions. I think that I used to have an opinion of suicide that was very harsh, very mean, very dismissive of why people do it, and the selfishness that I felt at the time that came into play during those situations when I would hear about something like that happening either in my city or something like that. And that really is just it's not that black and white. It's not, but it's also something that's very unique to the human experience. Like, unique to the point that it's only us that do it.
Yeah.
It's only us. Bears don't do it. Dogs don't do it. Ants don't do it.
Trumps don't do it.
They don't do it. No. But
They're,
human beings do it.
Yeah, and there is a little bit of disagreement, controversy about whether there have been documented cases of animals committing suicide. So if you look that up, you might find some people who would disagree with what Jared just said. But it's fairly easily
not so fast
to refute.
It is, yeah, because
those people.
There's definitely explanations, I believe, for a lot of those situations. I think there was a story about a bridge. I'm just going off the top of my head, obviously. There's a story about a bridge, I believe, somewhere in the UK where dogs had a habit of leaping off this bridge. And it came down to either they were hearing something from over the bridge, or they couldn't see over the bridge and thought they had the ability to continue past whatever they were jumping over, not realizing they were jumping to their doom. And it was like 50 dogs that were documented as doing this. And for a long time, people claimed that it was a bridge that something was causing dogs to commit suicide. And that's just not the case.
Yeah, so just so everyone knows, this conversation was inspired by a conversation Jared and I had after last week's show.
Yeah.
And it didn't really have anything to do with the usual discussion about suicide. We were, being all philosophical about humanity stuff in general. And it came up that when you get down to it and how we separate ourselves from other species on Earth, it's kind of like the only thing that's truly unique to humans. There are things that are unique to humans and dolphins and monkeys and whales or elephant. Like, there are other things that are limited to only the smartest, most intelligent species, the small group. But when you get down to, like, if there's only one thing, it's probably suicide. And the main difference between what some people would say are examples of animals doing it is basically that there is no way you can logically argue that an animal knows that something it's about to do is going to cause its own death. There are documented cases of animals being what you would call depressed and hurting themselves on purpose.
Out of frustration or anger.
Out of something.
Yeah.
I think there was a panda or
ripped all its hair out.
Something like
birds. The last time I've seen it was a bird that ripped all his feathers out. And it was just bald little, what are those talking birds? Parrots. And this bald parrot was rescued by someone, and the reason that it was bald was because its owner had driven it crazy.
Well, yeah, there are all kinds of examples of animals having like mental illness that is similar to human mental illness, anxiety, depression, whatever. And even animals that there was some kind of bear, is it panda or a regular bear? I don't know, but there was something going on in a situation where they're in captivity and their offspring was, not doing well in captivity, and it frustrated the hell out of this animal to the point where the animal like rammed its head into a wall, like ran full speed at a wall and rammed its head, and it ended up dying. But so that's a suicidal act because it hurt itself on purpose and it died. But it's so different from what humans do, which is I know what's going to happen when I hurt myself. And the goal is to not just hurt myself into oblivion, like because I'm frustrated. It's I want to end everything. There is no way that animals know that. And from a brain perspective, part of what you need in order to think in those future terms and defy your biological need to survive and all that, part of what you need is an actual language. Because when you have the language like humans have, it turns on different parts of your brain and allows you to think in spatial time. That's a language factor, and that's why we spend so much time thinking about the future. It has to do with how we think and how words form in our brains and thoughts. Animals don't have any of that, so there's no real way they could know that they're going to do something that's going to end their life. They might just be desperate. Similar, not the same.
No, because the processing of the feelings, it doesn't go on the same way. The processing of the emotions, of the depression, of the situation that a human being finds themselves in, which it still amazes me. I think that we've talked about this before too, that I've in dealing with the anxiety or the panic attacks that I've dealt with over the years. Turn my mic. In dealing with the panic,
much better.
Yeah,
fucking rookie.
Hey, watch your mouth. In dealing with those things, when I've gone to talk to somebody to talk about those feelings, the question always comes up: "Well, are you thinking about hurting yourself?" And I laugh because I think no, because that's that's why I'm having the panic attack. Is that it all ties back to survival instinct and a fear of dying. Why in the hell would I ever not want to live? Like so. This whole concept to me, in that sense, I still have a problem with processing how someone comes to that point in their life where they said enough is enough. Granted, if we're talking about a terminal illness where they're going to have to live in pain and want to decide to have an assisted suicide and go out with their dignity, in a lot of cases, is how they feel about the situation. Right. I think I could understand that. I don't think I could ever come to that decision, but Lord knows I would never want to, you can't imagine it if it's not you, which is another reason why I think I have a problem with people deciding for others about that choice as well. I think that we all are in a place to make our own choices. So, and obviously some people do that and they take their own lives, and in a regular sense of the word suicide, it causes a ton of pain to the people involved. Family, friends, people that those who committed suicide think that they're either giving them a break from their shit, or think that, or don't realize that they have the loved ones there to begin with. And 100% of the time they're wrong.
Right.
in both of those cases.
And I feel exactly the same way you feel when you first started this topic. I feel like my views on suicide have come a long way from when I was younger.
Yeah.
My godmother, my mom's closest in age sibling, my aunt, who I adored like nobody.
Yeah. Forgot about this story. Sorry.
She committed suicide right around the time I was graduating high school, and I was so angry for, I mean, like close to a solid decade, almost a decade, and it took a pretty it took several drinks and a long conversation with a good friend of mine and a strange story about an owl visiting me on my way home when my wife was driving me home after this long drunken conversation. But like, I mean, I might as well tell the story real quick so that I'm not being super cryptic. But I was at a friend's house. He called me over to help him talk about some tough stuff he was dealing with. One of his family members was going through some things, and he was angry, and he wanted a friend to sit around and like drink beer with him and chat. We ended up talking for a long time, and I told him about my aunt and how angry I was that she could leave a 9-year-old son behind, and how bullshit it was, and how I could never forgive her for that, and what it did to our family as a whole. And eventually, late, early in the morning, I call my wife, hey, come home and get me. She comes and gets me. We are on our way home, and all of a sudden, this big bird of some sort flies and like almost hits the windshield of our car, forces us to stop, and then lands on a street sign in a residential neighborhood, and it's a huge owl, and it's staring right at me through the windshield as I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and just creeped me the the hell out. And I was like mesmerized and hypnotized, and I got out of the car. I started approaching the sign, looking at this owl that was just staring.
Do you have any idea where that sound's coming from?
Yeah.
We lost our signal. For some reason, when I have my furnace or my air conditioning on, my HVAC, anytime it kicks on, I forgot to shut it off tonight, it shuts my wireless down, which is obnoxious. Obnoxious, not surprising. So there's the failure. Sorry. Let's see if I can fix this shot. So yeah, we're going to take a look at some of the comments while we're at it. Comments thus far. Is there anything worth reading? Have any of you asked us a question that actually pertains to anything we're talking about?
It's not about questions, just read them.
All right. I'm reading. What's up, JD? How are you? Ryan, yep.
That's actually not how you read comments.
Shout outs? Giving shout outs. It's just a million from Devin. Are you drinking tonight, dude? Bridge in Scotland. Thank you. So the story that I was telling about the dogs jumping off, it's in Scotland. Scotland.
Ah, right. Do you know when
Thanks,
we
Terry.
got cut off?
23 minutes in.
Like, what were we talking about?
You were beginning to talk about your aunt, I believe. Is that correct? Anyone watching? Sorry, I thought that said Jared is the heater.
That's what I was thinking, actually.
I am the furnace.
Who said that?
Running hot. Well, you said it. I read it wrong. It says Jared says his heater.
Oh.
And then went on. For a later, more or less depressing show.
Okay, so
I don't know, but we're back. We're back So dumb. For real.
I was saying that my views on suicide have come a long way, which is what Jared was saying in the beginning of the topic.
The frustration, yeah.
And I was kind of reluctantly decided to tell the story about how my aunt,
That was so rudely interrupted.
my godmother, someone I obviously cared really deeply about,
Yeah.
she committed suicide around the time I was graduating high school. And I was angry with her and that decision for years and years. And it didn't change until I had a really weird experience with an owl. Some of you who know me may know the story about this owl. But I got a call from a buddy. This was probably 2004 or 5-ish or so. He was having a rough time. He had just got some bad news about someone in his family, needed a friend to come over so he wasn't alone hanging out. I went and talked to him. You know, we had several beers. We were just commiserating together.
Right.
And I was telling him about my aunt who, at that time, 8 or 9 years previously, something like that, 7 or 8 years, had committed suicide and how I was still angry about it. I couldn't understand why she would do that. It caused this enormous explosion in our family.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
for the most part,
and you're no longer there to even be a part of what you caused. Yeah. I mean, the anger that would come out of that,
right,
and nowhere to direct it, but at each other. I mean, where else?
And to this day, it's the saddest moment of my life. I hope it never gets eclipsed. But she was a one-term Marine. She was a former Marine, so she got a 21-gun salute. There were Marines there who gave her 9-year-old son, my cousin, an American flag at her funeral, and it's like it's never gonna leave my memory. And so I was super angry about it, and that whole night talking to my buddy, I didn't have anything nice to say. There was no empathy, there was no understanding. It was just like everything I felt when it happened was pretty much still there years later.
Yeah.
Called my wife, said, okay, I'm ready to come home. Come get me. She came, got me. Driving through the residential neighborhood on the way back to our apartment. And this huge, dark shape flies in front of our windshield so close and alarmingly that it caused her to stop the car. And this shape lands on a street sign in front of a house, like a kids at play sign or something like that, and it's staring right at me through the windshield. I become instantly frozen and mesmerized and hypnotized, and I'm like, oh my God, it's this huge owl. I get out of the car. I'm compelled at this point. I'm not thinking about stuff. I'm just what is going on here? Get out of the car.
Perched on your shoulder.
I go. I start walking toward the sign. I get within about 10 feet of the sign, and the owl finally opens its wings, flies up to the roof of this house. Mm-hmm. Mind you, I'd never seen any kind of owl at any time, anywhere in the time I lived there.
Right.
Years. And I'd lived there before that. Anyway, now it's staring at me from the roof, just boring a hole in my brain, and it's it's an owl. It's got those mad eyebrows, and it's just staring at me.
Mean mugging you.
Mean mugging me. And I'm just I was affected. I didn't know what it was about. I got back in the car, and I'm like, has that ever happened to you? And my wife's like, no, man, that's weird.
That owl just climbed into your soul and told you to chill out.
Totally did. And so at that point, we go back to our apartment. We lay down in bed, and I'm like, honey, I can't stop thinking about that owl. I don't know what that was about, but it was telling me something. It was freaking me out. And she's like, yeah, that's crazy. Her dad's kind of a very spiritual, loves nature and animals kind of person. Mm-hmm. She's like, yeah, my dad had told me a long time ago that owls have some sort of, I think it's a Native American connection to people who had died, something like that. But there's some mythology around owls in Native American culture. And she said that, and I just start bawling in bed. Mind you, I was not completely sober, but it was like someone turned on a faucet and years of tears came out of my eyeballs, And she's like, "What is wrong with you?" And I said, "Okay, so here's what we were talking about over at my buddy's house." And it was one of those moments where it's hard to explain, but in my soul, I knew what had just happened. And it was like the years of anger that had built up a shell around that part of my heart that was once upon a time saved for loving my Aunt Shelley and had grown hard and bitter, like that just fell away like scales, and I was able to think about it in a different way. Like that owl was going, "You ignorant, unsympathetic asshole."
Enough.
Like, enough.
Yeah.
Of course it was awful.
Yeah.
Is that all you got? That's what it felt like. And then I immediately felt bad. And ironically, my cousin, her son, I'm very close to, and was his whole life, he was way more understanding about it than anybody.
Wow.
And still is.
How?
Because he knew her best. And my mom, who knew her second best, was probably next most understanding. It's like anything else we like to be judgmental about. It's judgmental thoughts come from ignorance.
And the further removed you are from a situation, the easier it is to judge.
Ignorance.
Thus, everything you read on social media.
Right.
Yeah.
So as you come further from the person, the more ignorant you are, and therefore feel more righteous in your opinion. And so now I'm in a place where I can look upon it with empathy while still thinking, that's a damn shame and she never should have done it.
What might also make it easier is thinking about the fact that she probably knows that now.
Yeah, man.
If you believe that way. Some people don't. Some people believe it's automatic damnation. Hard to really believe that, knowing
and I don't,
that you're not really yourself when you make that decision.
Oh, no. So many people are not. She definitely was not herself.
Yeah.
And I can tell you without having talked to her, my mom talked to her very shortly before, like a day or two before, I think. But I can tell you one thing. She thought, like you said, she thought she was doing everyone a favor, even her son. It's to that level that someone can convince him or herself they are so fucked up and such a problem, and they can't fix it at all, that they're going to be doing their own 9-year-old child a favor by ending everything. So, I mean, that right there, if you take the leap to that place, you get it. It's the problem is taking that leap and knowing how fallen someone has to be to get there. That's where we find ourselves. Like the rest of us who aren't in that place and won't be in that place, we always have to remember there's a lot of ground you have to cover to go from where I live my life to where, you know what, my kids would be better off if I were dead. And something's going on that path, on that ground that's being covered, where, holy cow, like, they shouldn't ever be allowed to get to that point. So many things have to go wrong. And that's why sometimes it's unavoidable. And sometimes everyone's going to look at each other and go, we did everything we could. And there's no point in, like, feeling guilty about it. It's not like it's always preventable, but at some point, something different, someone failed that person. It may have been 10 years earlier when something, But that's why we spend so much time talking about it and thinking about it.
Yeah, for us, and I would say too that this topic for me and for you is a little bit different for the fact that in the military, it is priority number one for us as wingmen.
Right, that's what I'm getting.
To our friends or to our coworkers or to whoever it may be that we come in contact with, in or out of a uniform. I think a lot of us are hypersensitive to recognizing when somebody's not themselves, when somebody's not in their right mind, not who they usually are, not who you're used to seeing. And for us as military members, it's muscle memory. We've been through enough training, we've been through enough conversations, and some of us, as awful as it is, have been to services for service members who have worked for them, with them, or in their squadron and had to watch those ceremonies after someone has committed suicide. So muscle memory, in a sense that we are automatic to snap to attention and snap to action when we recognize it. I don't know that normal society is. I think it's easier to avoid or to ignore or to not engage and just think, they'll be all right. Whoever it is. I don't know.
Yeah, we've turned it into...
Do we get to... I mean, does our engagement in that make a difference? Can it?
I mean, you got to listen to people who got to the precipice and didn't jump. And what they tend to say is, yeah, I was really close until so-and-so said this. And that so-and-so's usually like, really? That's the difference? And it goes both ways. Like sometimes people will look at you in the eye and be like, yo, you saved my life that day. That day when? When you dropped Starbucks off at my office. Like, you don't know what I was feeling then, but for whatever reason. So it's that, and it's also the person who like devotes months to trying to get someone out of the depths and it doesn't work, and that person still goes through with it. That happens too. But I didn't mean to make it depressing.
Well, no, and that's why I don't. I understand that. I think that what's happened during this conversation in my mind is it's for some reason I've drifted to a new demon that is almost on equal grounds, which is the opiate and heroin epidemic throughout the United States and the families across the country that are losing loved ones to something that they feel is preventable and that are choices that these people are making. And they almost fall into the same category with the amount of overdoses that happen.
I'm glad we're getting away from the depressing stuff. Thank you.
Deeper down the rabbit hole. But that adds a whole nother dynamic, and it's a conversation for another day. It's hard to not look at them as
they're linked.
They're the link to why they started using, to the actual death and the way that family members react and all of those things. And, unfortunately, hey, the one thing that I can say is that you and I are both, to let anyone watching or listening at any time to this episode, no, you're not alone in this situation. Everyone has experienced this at some point. Everyone will experience this at some point. And I just hope that you make the choice to be involved, to be engaged, to try to recognize, to try to help, and to be a friend. At the end of the day, that's kind of the point of the show to begin with, is we do the show for ourselves, for our friends, not necessarily for anyone else. And, take care of each other, I guess. That's the best way I can put it. We don't have to talk about depressing stuff anymore, man.
No, so
we can move on if you want.
I'm not saying we have to move on. It's more interesting to me to, if we're going to touch on that part, we should also touch on the idea of it as not thinking about someone we know doing it and crushing the souls of everyone around. Like, the philosophical part of suicide is really interesting.
Are you talking about the email you sent me earlier? What's that guy's name with all the quotes?
Albert Camus.
The French, he was a journalist and a philosopher born in the early 1900s, died in the 60s, I believe. I had the page open, man. I'm sorry.
At the time,
I can open it back up.
At the time, I don't know if he still is.
I loved some of those quotes, man, just stuck out to me.
The Albert Camus.
Who is he and why do we care? That's
at the time it happened, he was the second youngest person to ever win the Nobel Prize for Literature. He wrote The Stranger. you guys
The,
might.
the stranger. It's a whole nother. Don't look that up on Urban Dictionary. It's
That
something
was-
different.
That was a book. Oh Lord.
Give yourself the stranger.
Next to Plumpkin. What do you?
You got to sit on your hand.
The
Make it go
Stranger.
numb.
The Stranger's a weird book, but it's pretty fascinating. You guys might know what it is. You don't need to look it up, but that kind of put him on the map. He was a philosopher and author. He ended up being associated with this philosophy of absurdism because he wrote about the absurdity of life, and that's kind of where.
Right, and that's the quote that stands out in that sense is if the world were clear, art would not exist.
Yeah, that's
Same
one
sort of. Oh, you can pick
one
any
of
of them.
many.
I'm looking right now at a website that has at an email that you sent me that has all of these quotes from him that some of them grab me instantly. But
So it started because I'm paraphrasing here.
Mm-hmm.
You can read it, but one of the quotes he's known for is saying that there's only one philosophical problem that we have to deal with. The rest can be fairly easily explained. The only one that we have to deal with is suicide. Humanity has to understand, or is challenged to understand why suicide exists. And some of the stuff he wrote this like an essay series or whatever you want to call it called The Myth of Sisyphus. And it has to do with the absurdity of life and how basically if you really go down the rabbit hole of philosophy and you sort of check mark, I've made sense of that and I've made sense of that, and you just keep going and going and going, you eventually get to, okay, so I think the way he puts it is, should I have a cup of coffee or should I kill myself? Because that's how absurd life is. And everyone can relate to that on some level. Like,
Yeah.
just go on Facebook, and if you were to, let's just say this, accept
social experiment.
accept all of the friend requests you've ever gotten in your life. Okay, that's number one.
Yeah.
Say yes to everyone.
I already do that.
Go. Yeah, okay. Step one. Good job.
You want to be my friend?
Then go to all of their
friends.
profile pages and click see first. And then once you've done those things, then you got to spend like 4 days doing nothing but scrolling through your news feed. Like, eventually, you'll get to the point where you're like, oh my God, all of this whole existence is meaningless. If this is what humanity is, if these are the lives people are leading, then obviously it's pointless. Clearly, that's in a modern nutshell. That's what Albert Camus' point was. Like, you just have to spend enough time thinking about everything that happens on Earth. Like, oh, an anvil fell on a 2-year-old's head in Alberta, Canada. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like.
And don't try to make sense of it. You can't.
Oh, we're ignorant to the point of enjoying our own ignorance and, causing pain in others because, at some point someone didn't hug us enough.
That same thought
That's
process
great.
is also a reason to not give, you know what, mom, and I don't
Are we keeping score?
live and take advantage of life itself. I mean, when you can realize how absurd life is, you stop worrying about the insignificant.
I think that ultimately was Camus' point. Like, in the end, the choice you have, the choice you have to make is live life. That's the courageous, right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. For yourself, in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
too. Not selfishly, but not selfishly, but for yourself. Don't live in fear of. It's like wishing that you quit a job so that you would work another job, but being afraid of what will happen. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Go do that job.
And another thing that's really
Go
essential.
live that part of your life.
that you just touched on it. An essential part of what he would write about is how much time humans spend thinking about the future, and how you end up thinking about the thing you want. Like, we're so goal oriented. We mythologize and revere this idea of being goal oriented. And so,
Well, it's a way of inventing purpose.
exactly.
And that's
And why is that? Because the absurdity of life means we can't just figure out what the purpose is. Because we want to make it more complex. So we end up going, this is our goal. All right, what do I got to do to get to our goal? And then you live life, you live in the means and not the ends.
See, and this is as mind-bending as the space talks that we have as well. Man is the only creature who refuses to be what he is. We are obnoxious as humans. Absolutely obnoxious. Worrying about shit that doesn't matter. Not doing what we want to do with our lives. And then complaining about it on Facebook, of course. And then complaining about the other people complaining about their lives as if you're not, as if you're any different.
Right. I mean, living for the means, not the ends, is because you always think there's another ends out there we got to get, and we all get that. And I'm just trying to enjoy a naked chicken chalupa sometimes.
Right.
Like, man.
Right.
That is some human
But you shouldn't eat that.
Invention.
You shouldn't eat that. And you should beat yourself up for eating it, and you should think about what you've just done and how you're not going to make that decision again and all. No. Just enjoy that shit. I know I would.
I know you will later.
No, bro, I'm not eating to stop it. I'm not eating that. Nope.
I bought it.
Nope.
I did. Last time I didn't, and you were like, bro,
dude,
bro, you didn't give me one?
You saw what I made for dinner, didn't you? I put it on Instagram and Facebook, you son of a bitch.
No. First of all,
I made amazing stuffed chicken breasts with spinach and cheese and garlic wrapped in bacon, and I pan-seared them in my skillet, and then I put it in the oven, and it was stupid.
Did you lean over? Did you lean over the pan and just squeeze a little oil from your belly on?
It's so gross what you just said. It's so gross what you just said. It's gross. Look, it's not how it works.
Did you lactate onto the pan?
That's not nice.
It's got a little patina.
No. Hey, Instagram. You really want to piss people off right now, Jake? Do you want to? Because I'm interested in hearing a theory that you have.
Okay.
A theory about everyone's going to be angry at this. Everyone's going to be angry. Jake has a theory. Or would you call it a theory? Has a thought.
Yeah.
Has a belief.
Yeah.
You should write an essay. Jesus committed suicide.
That's right. I don't know if people are going to be mad about it.
I think that hearing that statement, it initially will piss people off.
If I were writing for BuzzFeed and I wrote that as the headline, then
clickbait.
People wouldn't read it, and then they'd be mad at the headline.
Okay.
So in this philosophical after-show discussion we had last week, we were talking about suicide as this thing that only humans do and how that is such an important philosophical thing to talk about and think about. And I was like, by the way, Jared, Jesus committed suicide, which in that sense...
I choked him right afterwards. I said, you son of a bitch! No, I didn't do any of that. I was intrigued.
Obviously, I don't mean that in the way we think about suicide, where it's like an escape from misery.
And that's yeah.
So, but in the sense that, Jesus absolutely knew what was coming. So even if you don't believe in the resurrection part, so we can all sort of agree that he put himself in a position. He basically laid himself out there for the authorities.
Assuming that his life and what happened and his death are factual.
Right.
Right.
He even had an opportunity, according to historical records.
Prove yourself. Take yourself down.
To say some things.
You're saying to take back what he said. Yes.
Yes. And I think there's a scene where Pilate or one of Pilate's cronies or whoever was doing the judgment was like, are you saying X, Y, and Z? And his response was, you're saying that I'm saying that. And that was basically it. Like he had an opportunity there. I don't think
a lot of that came from that they didn't necessarily want to crucify him because they knew the shitstorm that would follow.
Right. That's my point. So even under those circumstances, when it was fairly clear that it wouldn't have taken much to get himself off the hook, he was basically like, no, it's cool. Whatever you guys want to say,
You do you.
you do you, I'll do me. And
3 days later,
there you go. So
you'll all see.
he wasn't escaping misery. Like, we're talking about, no matter how you slice it, the dude was the most faithful, confident version of human you could be. And he went through with it. And what that taught us as Christians or as humans, just studying an individual in history, however you want to do it, is sort of that idea of being fearless and having faith in something.
And suicide in protest.
Yeah, and we see that with self-immolators who are a different level, like self-immolation where people set themselves on fire and
That's
protest.
the first thing I was thinking of was the Rage Against the Machine album. The first
Right.
album with the cover of the
Yep.
the Tibetan who
That's-
kneeled in the street, covered himself in gasoline, and set himself on fire. Was that in the 60s or 70s? I don't remember.
I think that was in the 60s, but I believe that also happened recently, and it was
It
a
did,
thing that
yeah.
set off the Arab Spring. So those people on some level are in the category of trying to escape misery. You know, they feel helpless.
It's a whole different category of. Well, are they? Yeah.
It's both. It's feeling helpless and miserable while also having a purpose and realizing
Wanting to make a
I'm
point.
going to be a martyr here.
Yeah.
So there are levels, but on the scale, what Jesus did, he wasn't afraid, he wasn't miserable, he just was trying to make a point. And obviously, if you listen to the show, I'm definitely some kind of Christian. I am not the kind of Christian most people are Christians, but I would say that he comes back, and that was his one major miracle. Like, so now, basically what I'm trying to tell y'all
I like the water and the wine one.
is
It's my favorite. The
You like-
fish and the bread.
and the bread, the
too.
onion,
Multiply that
the
shit.
buffet. The Jesus buffet is your favorite. I understand why you think that, but me personally,
the leper's cool. The cutting the ear off, whatever. I don't care. But then, yeah, walking on water. Ooh, no. Food and wine.
I like the one where he's like talking to someone in the house, and then other people come down from the roof, and he's like, "Oh shit, your faith is amazing, damn! All right, okay, you skipped the line, but that was some cool shit." Yeah. That's a good one. But to me, if there was only one thing, and we all even Christians don't seem to really understand. God, I sound like such a.
It's all right. It's all right because I get the
can't
same
handle
way.
myself sometimes.
I feel the same thing.
I'm right here going, I understand this mysterious thing. You might not.
y'all are. I'm gonna say it.
Yeah.
Y'all are fucking it up.
But the whole idea of the resurrection and you died for our sins and that's kind of I think what was going on. But realistically, if you want to make it really simple, he was in front of everyone saying, "I'm not afraid to die." Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. And if you never heard another word about him again, you would walk away going, that dude was a fearless dude. I wish I could.
Hashtag goals. Hashtag squad goals.
Rise and grind, bro.
Yeah.
But that's what you would walk away with.
So I don't got to worry about it.
If you
So it's
left.
cool.
Yeah, even if you never
So
saw him come back.
pain is temporary. Is that what you're saying?
And then if you were around for him to come back, it's basically him going, "You
Told ya."
see? You're worried about all of your mortal."
By the way, is there not hypocrisy in the resurrection story? Like, why did you come back and prove it to some of those folks as opposed to all the other things? So let me put it this way. I grew up being told, to never ask God to prove himself to you, to work in faith alone. And the proving yourself is also a part of the crucifixion. You can come down if you want. If you're the Son of God, why don't you get off the cross? Why don't you come down, prove yourself? And the prove yourself thing is out there. No, we're not going to prove ourselves through all that, but we're going to wait until 3 days later. Now I'm going to prove myself. Check out my hands. Remember that shit? Yeah. See? So
Well, what, my answer to that?
I don't know. Matilda's messing this up right now. My dog, the boxer, decides she wants to be
something.
Yeah, to be a pain in the ass. She wants attention. That's all.
My answer to that is, first of all, life. Thinking about yin and yang and what makes life meaningful, and variety and understanding good and bad. Like the contrast we need to have meaning in our lives requires the idea of faith.
Absolutely.
And I'm not gonna like get too poetic about this, but essentially, I think what Jesus's point is if you were to just have everything shown to you all the time, then this whole thing would be boring. This whole life thing would be boring. There has to be some mystery. There has to be some faith. There has to be something you want to believe in. And I'm gonna do it here this one time. I'm gonna be here for a couple years preaching, and I'm gonna make one big show. So all of you who want me to prove and want God to prove something, just pay attention. And all of you who are asking me to prove it right now, just be patient, okay? Like, I'm not going to get off the cross. I've got something better going on. Just wait.
Just
like, yes, I could get down.
chill out.
I could get down, or I could die and come back to life.
Which would be a way cooler story. So
right?
let me just do this.
Spoiler alert.
Someone hold my beer.
Would you shut up and let me bleed?
Yeah.
So, but that's how I think it went down. And so now he comes back and he's like, so just so you guys know, you saw it, I'm back. You must know now that there's something more beyond what you're dealing with now. So maybe you don't have to worry about hoarding your possessions and slicing your neighbor's throat to get his sheep and all the bullshit you're worried about now. Like, there's something bigger out there, okay? Did you hear me? Because now everyone knows, and it's going to live on for thousands of years, and no, I don't need to prove it again every year. Like, no. That's it. So the point being...
Cool story, bro.
The point being... he used suicide in its highest form as a way to show us you don't ever need to worry so much.
Come on, comment on it. Comment on it, anyone watching on Facebook Live. Comment on this. That chicken shit little
you don't ever have to go. You don't ever have to be so miserable that you would commit suicide. Because I did that in a fearless way, and I came back and I showed you like it's all good.
You ain't got to worry about it.
This too shall pass. Like that's it. That's what I was telling you last week, and then part of a suicide conversation.
Man,
that
we end up back on Christianity a lot lately.
We do?
Have you noticed that? I feel like we have. I feel like we've ended up trending towards some talk about Jesus has been a part of a lot of our podcasts somehow, some way. I guess that's a thought for a later time. Just the why we seem to be going down that path. I feel like we could have spent more time on Prince Albert over here. Albert Camus.
Yeah.
I took French 3 years. Don't remember any of it.
Read some more. Read like 5 more.
Of the quotes?
Yeah, the people like
dude.
Just
the quotes
enough,
are so good.
Just enough that someone will go, I'm gonna read some of those myself.
Seriously, Google this dude. So it led with there is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. Only it takes time to be happy, a lot of time. Happiness too is a long patience. Some of these make me have to think and reorganize words in my head the way they're written. But in the end, one needs more courage to live than to kill himself.
Read some of the ones below that don't have to do
I really
suicide.
liked that one earlier. I thought you would have said something to it. Yeah, all right. So you're saying down the path?
That. Yeah, I mentioned
Integrity has no need of rules.
Love that.
That means just live, dude. If you're doing it right, you're doing it right.
We always try to put rules on integrity.
Well, because we don't trust other humans.
Right.
I mean, that's what that comes down to. People hasten to judge in order not to be judged themselves. Oh. Yeah, I think I talked about that earlier. That's another thing. I mean, How many times, let's go back to the military honors subject of someone who commits suicide, and there are people that get angry. Why are you giving full military honors to that individual who killed themselves? Get the fuck out of here, asshole. They're
Exactly.
getting it because they served, and you don't know the reason that that happened or that they chose that path, and maybe it comes from their experiences protecting your ass.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm thankful that we've all come a long way in that regard. I mean, understanding.
Oh yeah, it
all of
wasn't
that.
too long ago that was a more rampant feeling, but it still exists. It's normal to give away a little of one's life in order not to lose it all. I haven't read any of the longer ones, so I'll do one of those. I've seen enough of people who die for an idea. I don't believe in heroism. I know it's easy, and I've learned it can be murderous. What interests me is living and dying for what one loves.
Living in the present. That's what he's talking about. We're not, even heroism is like an end we all like seek. You know?
Here's one that speaks to me. This is right up my alley. This is one of the reasons why I have the show and that I have long conversations with Jake. You will never be happy if you continue to search for what happiness consists of. Kind of. Here's the part, though. You will never live if you are looking for the meaning of life. And that has to do with that future thought. Always thinking of the future. Same exact portion of that. It's aggravating reading that. It's making me mad. It's forcing me to change my thought process. And I'll be reminded of that. I'm glad I found that quote sitting there. All of these quotes can be found on the Google. All you got to do is Google the man's name, Albert. Is it
Camus?
Camus.
Camus. And I'm going to leave one here for anybody who listened to this and thought, these dumbasses think they know what they're talking about. Suicide. They don't know what I'm going through. They're not here with me in this dark place. Mm-hmm. Shut the hell up, because I'm close.
There's other people that might think that we don't know what we're talking about and might have nothing to do with that. That's neither here nor there.
So one quote he had that I think is beautiful, that I think can inform everyone's life, whether you're on the brink of suicide or whether you're just having a bad day. Autumn is a second spring when every leaf is a flower.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites, and I can't believe I missed it. I can believe I missed it when I was reading, but that one stood out to me earlier as well. Such a lot of quality words. Hang on here. You can do that again. Do you want to input that? We can put that into the soundboard one of these days if you want to do that. We can put all your sounds.
Whatever, man.
Well, you let me know. Let me know. Go ahead. No, you're on the wrong side. See, you got to do it again now. You got to do it again.
I do.
Yeah, you're killing your own buzz here.
And now, Jake's super amazing trivia.
I don't like that one. I like the other one.
And now,
Stop it,
time for
Ian.
And now,
Ian.
Stop yelling. I have it turned up. So
and now, Jake's super amazing trivia.
All right, what shitty trivia have you brought me this week?
And now,
I swear to God, I'm gonna throw that out the window.
This one?
Super amazing trivia of the week.
Yeah, you should have
That's
just went
what
with
you
that
want.
one to begin with.
Oh, man. Dude,
What's wrong with you?
Yell at your brother, dude.
Yell at you. Delete the other one. It's garbage.
Put it on your soundboard.
I will.
Did you know fish yawn?
I think I did know that one.
So do
you know what?
Hey,
I'm trying to help you out here. I'm trying to help you out. This is what I think needs to happen. Sorry, this show is clearly after 8 months still a work in progress. It is. Go ahead.
fish yawn. So do unborn babies.
Yeah, we know that.
Why? Nobody knows. And that's because nobody has been able to figure out why any animals yawn, much less why yawns are contagious between people, parentheses, and chimps and macaques and baboons and dogs.
Yeah, but so is coughing. Have you ever been
That's
in an
not
area
true.
around other human beings where some person coughs and then another person coughs afterwards?
One is scientifically proved and one is not.
I don't know that the other one's not. I think that you're just being lazy and not looking it up.
By the way,
Anyway.
It sounds like I'm stealing these facts from somewhere. I mean, I'm learning them,
Right.
but I'm not plagiarizing.
Okay.
Everything, the amazing trivia, Ian compels me to
No one's
reveal.
asking that question right now. Read your trivia, Jake.
I am writing them myself, just so you know.
Oh, you're writing them yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm impressed.
I'm not reading it from somewhere else that someone else wrote.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're having these thoughts, then you're looking up the facts behind them, you're
Right.
proving your thought, and you're bringing them here as a trivia.
In the course of my
Life.
readings, things interest me, and then I write them down.
God, you are just the lamest sometimes, but I appreciate it.
I know you do.
That's it? Is that the only one you had?
You only get one.
Everybody gets one. Tell him, Spider-Man. Tell him, Peter. Well, holy shit, man. I'm sorry, everybody, about the Facebook stuff today. Yeah, I'm sorry that I left my furnace on. I'm sorry that the Facebook feed was interrupted. I'm sorry that my quick hits on the news kind of failed. A lot of that came because I didn't explain it to Jake prior. I'm sorry that we may have pissed some of you off with the topics or bored you to death with them as well. But we're going to keep doing it. And some of you will keep tuning in. I'm probably going to use the F word a little more often. Jake is now using the slide whistle to piss off Matilda.
You said that with the
Yeah, like a news. Yeah, I did. I know. And now Jake is pissing off the dog with his slide whistle.
It's still playing. Please. Why is it still playing?
Here's something that we're gonna wrap it up. So, something
wish
that we
your
were
dad
talking
had
about.
wrapped it up.
We've got we have. What do we have? Special guest coming in.
Oh,
We don't have to give it. We don't have to give it up.
Let's not reveal
But
it.
here's what I do want to say: if you do want to be a guest on the Jarid Watson Show, hit me up on Facebook, hit up our Facebook page, or shoot me an email.
What I just realized is people heard that.
JaredJohnPR@gmail.com.
Who just heard that and they're like, "Oh my god, there's like a celebrity." They're gonna be so disappointed. Don't get your hopes up.
If you want to be on the show, let us know. Just a reminder that you basically have to prove yourself worthy if you're going to be on the show.
Auditions.
It's going to happen because it's hard enough with us too. If you suck, then the trifecta is complete. We don't need any of that shit.
Barely above water, folks.
Anyways, thanks for tuning in tonight or today or whenever you're listening. Matilda needs to go outside, I think.
Okay.
Maybe next week we'll talk about Interstellar and Arrival. I make no guarantees.
Watch them anyway.
Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Much love. Happy Lent. What did you give up? I'm not Catholic. I gave up nothing. Don't forget, everybody, you can't be mad if it's funny. Peace.
Peace.